This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
There are no spoilers in this episode outside of the Cloak of the Air series. However, there are topics surrounding sex, violence, and substance abuse.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the YA literature and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today we are discussing The Queen of Nothing and How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories. That is quite a title. Books 3 and 4 from Holly Black in the Folk of the Air series. Whew, that's a whole mouthful.
It's a lot.
The abbreviations for How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories is really intense, and I didn't know what it meant when it was first coming out on social media. I was like, what is this? But then I figured it out. I felt better.
Now it makes so much sense why everybody just uses the first letter of the title as opposed to writing the whole thing out. And I mean, there's really no other way to abbreviate it except when you see people just reference it as like Learn to Hate Stories or, just the beginning of the title. We use it in like Gaga fandom all the time because she's been around. Like Born This Way just had its 10-year anniversary. And then when you think, okay, if that was Born This Way, like Just Dance has been around way longer. So everything just gets abbreviated over time. And I'm sure like it's like we're not the only fandom that does that. I know other fandoms do. So, and I'm definitely learning that through book talk or like when I'm having conversations with other people, I go, wait, soon everybody just speaks in acronyms and I kind of love it. It's a secret code because every time somebody just stumbles upon something, you're like, huh? But I remember that. I was always, even with From Blood and Ash, I was like, what's FBAA? I'm excited. I like it. It's a secret language that only everybody else gets. So it's a fandom thing.
It is absolutely a fandom thing. And this book, How the King is kind of for the fandom. You can't read it without reading the other 3 books in the Folk of the Air series. And it gives you a lot of background from Cardan's perspective on some of the events that happened that we may have heard of just in passing in the other books or his, reasoning behind things. And I really like that. I also cannot stop picturing Cardan in like skinny jeans and boots and like an oversized hoodie. Yeah. Just at the gas station. I love it. I love it so much.
I like when he's like, because I wrote this down. He goes, might you have some means by which I can navigate your lands? And all I could think of was problematic Chris Pratt in Onward, where he's like, join my steed, and it's his van. But I can only imagine the emo boy, which is Cardan Greenbrier. And it's like, I mean, if Jude took him to the mall, he was walking into old school Hot Topic. Not at all.
No question. No question. Remember, one of our favorite fan arts is the one of Cardan and Jude walking out of Sephora, and Cardan's carrying all the Sephora bags. I love it. I also love the one where Jude is putting eyeliner on Cardan, and she's using her dagger to get like a perfect wing on Cardan, and I love that too because it's just so them.
I really enjoyed this reread of Queen of Nothing because I picked up on that more just because the fan art that's out there, and I love, like the smear of the gold. Even when she gets out of her coma from her father almost killing her, she smacks him and she has like gold on her. I'm just imagining like the copious amounts of highlighter on him.
What's even better is he either does it himself or he has a servant do it for him. So it's either the delightful image of him just like slathering on highlighter and eyeliner or sitting very still while somebody else does it for him. And either way is just so wonderful. I just love him so much. Let's start with Queen of Nothing. I have some high points written down, and Jess this is her second time through. I don't have siblings. I'm just going to put that out there. I don't have siblings, but I do have friends that only contact me when they need something. So that's what really gets me fired up about Taryn coming back into the mortal world, pregnant as fuck, begging for Jude to come save her ass, because it has been months, right? And Taryn didn't need anything. She was fine. Suddenly she murders her husband and is knocked up and needs Jude's help, and wha-bam, there she is.
And Jude knows it too at this point. She knows that Taryn is shitty. And we should also preface this that we haven't read that extra novella that has Taryn in it. I don't want to. It's just like if Sarah wrote a novella about Tamlin, I wouldn't read it. Unless I found a spoiler that you told me that Reese is in it, has a prevalent role, or somebody that I like has a prevalent role. And even then I'd probably just be like, okay, what's the Tumblr spoilers? Like, I don't need it. But Taryn is shitty. And because she needs something, there's the part where Jude is undressing. She got stabbed or whatever by Grandma Mog. I call her Grandma, even though I know it's Grandma, but I call her Grandma Mog. And it's Taryn's all of a sudden doting on her. Oh, let me help you with that. Let me help you undress. And Jude's like, I know that we're twins and we've definitely seen each other without our clothes on, but it's a little much. And I just, Taryn's a shitty sister. And it's just something that is a reoccurring theme you see in a lot of YA and fantasy, and I miss the positive sibling dynamics, because I don't have a great sibling dynamic in my own life. And I have two brothers and a sister. And then I have cousins I'm close with that we basically say, like, we're each other's siblings too. So it's funny that you do say that, because just like you have friends who reach out when they need something. Like, there was a point in my life where my brother, like, hey, big sis. And my response started to just be like, well, what do you need? I'm not going to entertain this idea. You want something. Let's look beyond that. And we're making small strides, to improve the relationship, however that might be. But you don't even see that. Even at the end of this book, you don't see that. If it was just like, what are those murder mysteries where it's like murder suicide? If Taryn and Locke were a murder suicide thing, I would have been like, okay, next, and let's keep going.
The thing, well, I guess there's several things, but one of the things that I do find interesting about Taryn that is not brought up or like addressed at all is that she eats the fairy fruit like on the reg. When Jude is Taryn and she goes to Locke's house and she's like, no, I'll take a tray of dinner like in my room or whatever. Jude's basically like, the fuck is this? Like, is Taryn just eating the fairy fruit all the time?
I'm sure she is. And I mean, whereas Jude was building up a tolerance for it, I don't feel like that's what happened with Taryn. And I think a lot of Taryn's experience post marrying Locke was she needed to be in like this non-lucid state, if you will, because she was from the very beginning, it was all about appeasing him and making sure he was happy. And that's what real love is. And fairy love is different than human love. And there were the orgies and to each their own. I'm not judging for that, but if that's the type of person and that's what you want out of life, but it's clearly not what Taryn wanted. And in that regards, I do feel a little bad, but that's also the choice that she made. You made your bed, now lay in it.
I do like that Taryn murdered Locke. I like that a lot.
Oh yeah. I love that it was like in, a crime of passion.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't premeditated. She was just so fucking worked up. Like in Chicago, where the girl like villains row or murders row. You're like, it just got swept up in it. And I like it.
And she says, I just wanted him to stop talking. That's all I needed. And I was like, same. I understand wanting to stab men to get them to stop talking. Like,
just shut up.
For real. And then I also like how Jude kind of reflects on that. She's like, wow, I guess we who were raised in a house of murder use it to solve our problems. And maybe we are a little bit more similar to each other than Jude had thought before. So I like that.
I also, you bring that point up, which I like, because I think out of everybody, especially out of all the sisters, including Vivi, because she's half human. She's half fae, half fae, half human because of her mom.
Vivi?
Vivi? Oh, because her mom, Vivi is full fae? No.
Oh,
half human.
This
her
is
mom.
a good question. I don't think so, because she's immortal. They say that over and over again.
But I don't think
Vivi's.
Oh, maybe they went to did they go to the mortal world because the dad is mortal and the mom didn't want. Yeah, you're right. So Vivi's full.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Vivi's full. She's got magic. She's got the ear points. She's immortal.
Oh, full ear points too. Not like a Bryce situation.
Yeah. And she's got the eyes. And Maddox says that she's she is his
his legitimate daughter.
Heir. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I digress because that really has no contribution to this, what I was going to say. But in regards to the sisters, Jude is the most aware of her surroundings. She understands not only what it means to be human. She talks about like how being human makes her feel powerless. You continue to hear that even with how the king, Cardan's like she's constantly trying to prove herself and she doesn't have to anymore. But she doesn't know that because this is how she was raised. And for Jude to even, understanding the environment in which they grew up with, for her to realize, okay, like this makes sense. I can see why we are the way we are to an extent. And I feel like that's, continuous conversation that we have, understanding like your environment, your surroundings, sharing DNA and how everybody processes things differently and how people can come out so different too. I know that's been like an ongoing conversation we've had through some of the books and discussions we've been having over the last few weeks.
That's a good point because it reminds me of the conversation that Jude has with Van Moren, the old king's seneschal. And she's like, who's also human. She's like, yo, you have never helped us ever about anything. We're the same. And he's like, hold up, take a step back. We are not the same. When I got to Fairy, this is Van Moren speaking, I was fully grown. So, and then he does the thing where like, a seed planted in goblin soil will turn out differently than anything else. And he's saying that like Jude was raised here. She was so young when she came over. She was raised in Fairy. So she is completely different than Van Moren, who was, older when he got here, which is interesting because Jude always says like, I'm human. I'm a different species. The folk are different from me. But then Van Moren is saying like, you are a different species from me.
Which, yes, he's not wrong. It's, even from like a very simple, somebody who is let me use this example. You have you and Sam who are adults who are transplanted in Germany and you are assimilating part of the German culture. You as humans, Americans, quote unquote, in Germany is much different than an American child who is brought up in Germany. You're both human, you're both Americans, blah, blah, blah. But who you are not the same.
Definitely. And I see that in some of the kids that we see on base and stuff. Of course, they're Germans, like fucking perfect, and I'm struggling to string a sentence together.
I love when you go to the grocery store and you just like point at chickens still.
Well, I didn't cry this week, so that's always a plus.
I just take the way you have the young, it's a generational thing too, because you have the older people who are like rolling their eyes, and then you have like the younger people who are working. You're like, yeah, I'll help you. Like, why does this have to be a thing every week?
Why do I have to cry every week at the grocery store? Well, that's something for my therapist. I want to point out in The Queen of Nothing that when Jude is dressed as Taryn and she's at the inquest, Cardan immediately knows that that is Jude. He knows it's not Taryn, and he has like that like look in his eye and the gleam in his eye, and he, you know, puts a gesh on or compels her to, you know, tell the truth or whatever, knowing it's Jude and that, you know, it's all bullshit. And he's like, oh, I must inspect you all over. Come to my chambers.
I love all of their reunions throughout the whole thing. Like, you have that, and him knowing it's her, him always, like, even if it's between her and Taryn, he only knows her because even with the earrings, she's the most beautiful person in the whole world to him. And I think that's so fucking cute. And then, like, when she's pretending to be Taryn, when I love the part where the bomb thinks Jude is trying to attack Cardan, and Cardan is like, calm the fuck down, everyone. This is my queen. And I love that. And she's like about to pass out, and everyone's just gasping. What? Queen? Mortal queen? They have no idea. Finally realizing her outburst prior to her being quote unquote exiled wasn't an illegitimate outburst. She really was queen. Then she's in a coma, and then and then when she's fluttering through, coming in and out of like her consciousness, he's sitting by her bed, like washing the blood off of her hands, but she's just in and out of it. And then when they reunite again, first she slaps him and all that stuff, but then he's just trying to dismiss everybody, and he goes, leave us, I tire of the lot of you, because I would love to say that shit, like, just leave me alone. And then once they're fighting and this part of the reunion, she's like, perhaps you'd like to hear me scream, because they're trying to like fix her and heal her. And he goes, I would, and perhaps one day I will. And I love it because it's because they haven't had sex yet, and I'm just so hyped for them.
And then, of course, we have to mention Cardan being like, Jude, didn't you get my letters?
The letters.
And everything that goes with the letters. She's like, well, what was in them? And he's like, you know, pleading, indiscreet promises. And then, of course, the letters are in the back of, I think, the Barnes & Noble exclusive.
Yeah, I think so.
But you can read them online if you just Google, like, Cardan letters. They pop up. They're so good.
And I was trying to think. I love the letters. I'm trying to think, like, which quote was your favorite? Because there's a couple for me. Yeah.
Come be angry at a nearer distance.
Right. I love that one. And I love come home, shout at me, come home and fight with me. Come home and break my heart if you must. Just come home. They're so fucking cute. I love the letters. And justice for the letters, because Asha should not have taken them, destroyed them.
Jude doesn't know what they say.
Jude had no idea. Jude didn't realize this whole time she could have been home earlier. All she wanted to do was go back to Elfhame. And she even said in the beginning, she goes, maybe he wasn't realizing his choice of words. And she goes, or maybe he did. And then when she finds out that he did intend it, she goes, oh, he did intend. He purposely phrased it the way he did, understanding the loophole, but she didn't know that.
And I have a note here. I'm trying to find it, but it was basically that she was depressed afterwards, and she felt so humiliated. And the kind of the theme in this book is Jude dealing with the feeling of shame, and how she's like ashamed of being a human. She's ashamed of loving Cardan. She's ashamed of wanting to be queen. So it's like her working past all of this shame. And she says, like, I stopped trying to find a way back to Fairy because I was embarrassed and hurt by everything that happened. And she kind of like berates herself a little bit for that. But I really love the image of Cardan storming into the mortal world and just like banging on Vivi's door, being like, where the fuck is Jude, pretty much, after Jude gets kidnapped. Right. Because Maddox thinks that she's Taryn and gets taken to the war camp. I love that image because I have to imagine he's in like all his fine like king outfit, right? he gets over there, he's banging on the door, and Vivi says, like, the king of Elfhame was there and he looked murderous and he was just screaming where you were. And then they had to go get Grima Mog.
He just got Jude back trying to explain like what has happened. And she goes, what are you talking about? And now he's like, well, where the hell is my wife? Because he doesn't know who took him. And you later find out when she's at the war camp that Maddox is like, I was not expecting him to put up such a fight, Taryn. And he doesn't even connect the two. That Cardan would not have fought like that for Taryn. No. At all. But he goes, oh, but I really like this because now I have an understanding of where his strength lies as competition, which I understand from a general standpoint, I guess. From a war standpoint, I understand where Maddox is coming from. But to go back to what you were saying, the overarching theme is Jude accepting herself more or less and trying to overcome that shame. You hear her say it time and time again between the reunion between her and Cardan, because she says like, I hate that he saw me at my most vulnerable and bleeding. And then she goes, I hate the idea of my emotions getting to me because they make me weak. And it's just very interesting she wants to acknowledge the feelings that she has, but at the same time, acknowledging any emotion. I just feel it's really relatable. I feel like it's very relatable for a lot of people, not just in fairy, but whatever you're going through. The second you become vulnerable, you just think shit.
And also, Cardan doesn't have this problem, right? Like he tells Jude in clear not even fairy terms, just like clear terms, like, I love you. I don't know if you realize it or not, but like my heart, I haven't. Yours. Yeah, he's like, I haven't made myself easy to love, which is the theme of the novella, pretty much. He's like, my heart is like a withered, scabrous thing, but it's yours. It's all yours. I just want you to know in case you didn't. And I think it's very relatable for Jude just to like stand there shocked and silent and not say it back.
She didn't know. And even when she's back in Elfhame, prior to him saying that, she even says, like, look, marriage to me is an alliance. It's nothing more. And go, poor Jude. She really doesn't know. So even with Cardan's, yay, that Cardan spelled it out for her. And then when she's finally processing her feelings and realizing it's not that she isn't processing. She knows the feelings are there, but she just doesn't want to connect the word love to it, I think, at this point. But then he turns to a snake and she just has that on repeat over and over again. And when he is in that serpent form, nobody can control him, blah, blah, blah. And then you find out that the only person that the serpent can kind of recognize or have like this soul to soul energy connection, even if the serpent doesn't realize it's Jude, is her. He'll only be calm around her.
And also, Cardan's tail. We haven't really talked about, we have talked about Cardan's tail, but like Cardan's tail in the novella is spelled out really clear. It lashes back and forth when he's nervous. And even when he is trying his very best, his tail gives him away. So that's why he like tucks it, he like tucks it away. And then the scene that you're referencing when Jude slaps Cardan in the garden, she says that his eyes went molten with something that wasn't fear. It was like, yeah, no, he's totally into that. But
well, yeah, because then later she goes, I kick him and he kisses me again, but harder.
Yeah. He's into it.
It reminds me of Kaven's video where she does the dagger play. And I go, this is totally Jude and Cardan. She goes, do it again.
It's great. And it's also, we've had this conversation outside of the podcast, but Cardan's growth is really sweet because he was completely neglected as a child. And then his brothers tricked him with killing Van Moren's mortal lover with the arrow. And then nobody wanted him and nobody believed him. So then he had to go to Baelkin, who abused him very badly. And then his tail was like tucked away because they gave him away. And then when Jude comes back to Fairy as Terrence, she's like, oh, the tail's out. He must be comfortable. It's like, yeah, bro, he is the king now.
And I love that it continues to transition into the novella, because when he goes out to Aslog and he goes to kill her so Jude doesn't, he's like, I am the king. And I mean, not only am I the king, I raise these islands. The ground accepts me as the true king. And we'll circle back to that as how Jude is accepted as the true queen of Elfhame. And I think him accepting himself is just, that's such a huge growth. And even telling his story, and she goes, oh, that's not how the story goes. And he goes, but didn't you say stories change? And he's recognizing his own growth through this retelling of, you know what, I might have a heart of stone, but like I have my monster queen and we're perfect for each other.
Jude with the hospitality of knives is just one of my favorite lines. So yeah, let's talk about Jude. Let's talk about Madoc not being able to turn off his instincts when it comes to like fighting and like war and stuff. And the battle that Jude has with him, where I thought, I was like, he's not gonna like kill her. He's not gonna kill her. Like he's her.
You think he's gonna stop at that?
Yeah, he'll check his blow. He fucking does not check his blow, and he like basically guts her, right? And he
says he's surprised in himself too.
Right. He just can't. You can't. These people, I say people, they're not human, so they don't have the same instincts as we do. So like he was born on the battlefield. They say that, over and over again. Like Madoc was born on the battlefield, literally. He has this glee when it comes to violence and blood and battle. So he didn't stop his killing blow. He guts Jude. But then he's like, you're dying. Let me take you back to camp. Like the healers are there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone else, Taryn and Vivi and Grima Mog are just like, get fucked. Get fucked. We'll deal with it. And then Jude, I love this. Jude is like, you need to stitch me up, like pack my wound full of like earth and leaves. And I like, this is the only time I like Taryn. Taryn's like, you're gonna get like this wicked infection. Like why do this?
And she didn't, and you know what? She didn't even know if this was going to work. She goes, it worked for Cardan. I know it's different from Cardan because he has been accepted as the true king of Elfhame. But let's just try it, because at this point, it's either I die bleeding out or I die from the infection. But it will prolong, at least if I'm packed and sutured up, we can at least get me to where I need to go, which is still the point of the packing. And then when they do that, and then when the flowers come through the snow after where her blood had been, I go, oh, she's accepted. And Taryn's just like an airhead, all, I don't understand. I'm so confused. And Vivi's like, she's fucking queen.
I also like how Vivi is kind of looking around, being like, there is some weird shit happening.
Are you okay? Jude's, yeah, why? I mean, it hurts, but not as bad anymore.
It's so good. I love all of that. And of course, Jude uses her power to heal the ghost later on. She's like, I am the queen. I command you to wake. And that is her kind of acceptance moment right there, which is important because she was struggling the whole time. Like after Cardan was turned into a snake, Jude has a breakdown. She goes into the room with Grima Mog and she's in shock and she has a complete and utter breakdown. She's like, oh my God, Cardan is gone. I can't do this on my own. I never realized what it was really like. And then she says how, looking at Cardan on the throne and then looking at Eldred on the throne, they're always with, and this has been used a lot in like teen comedies, dramas, and like shows and stuff, but like, you can be completely alone surrounded by a group of people. And then Jude's like, I'm completely alone. I have all these servants. Everything I do, every moment is accounted for, but I have no one.
And she doesn't in that moment because she doesn't have that relationship with her sisters. She doesn't have that friendship with anybody probably outside of the Court of Shadows. And even then it's strained because the trust is not there right now. And I think that's the point where she appoints Grima Mog to say, do you want to be like basically my second in command? And Grima Mog's like, you just fought me and I tried to kill you last week. And Jude just says, story of my life, but I like you. Like, out of everybody, you're actually the most honest, which is saying something, but also saying that she can trust this person, that everybody wants to kill me and you're the person that I trust most. And in that moment of the breakdown, I do respect Grima Mog to just say, I know you're alone. I know you're breaking down, but you gotta buckle up, because if you don't show face, this is going to be another thing that they're going to try to take away from you, because there's a lot of people going for that throne right now if Cardan isn't there, and you cannot let that happen. And I respect that a lot. And I think you and I can both attest to seeing ourselves in Jude in that moment of breaking down, taking a deep breath and be like, got this. I need to push everything else aside, because what's ahead of us, like bigger picture, that needs to come before myself. And I really like that moment for her.
Heather says, I don't care one way or another really about Heather. She's kind of whatever for me. But she says something in the beginning of the book that really, I think, perfectly describes Fairy, and it definitely describes how I think of Fairy. She says it's like a beautifully shot horror movie. And that is exactly how I picture Elfhame and Fairyland. Just like very vivid, but also horrible. And I like Jude says something like that at the end of the book when Cardan isn't a snake anymore and they're at the big banquet. And she says there's platters of meat being brought out and she doesn't recognize what it is. And then she takes a moment. She's like, oh, it's snake. The fairies are going to eat the snake to hopefully get some of that power. And she's like, some fairy ways will never not be horrifying. And that's coming from someone that has been raised there, who is still kind of horrified by the folk. And I love that.
I understand the reluctance. It's not just a snake. It's Cardan.
Yeah. It's a little like a little cannibalistic. I also really like that every time Grima Mog gives Jude some food, she's like, what is this? I don't really know what this is. And Grima Mog's like, don't think about it. Just eat it. I love that. Let's talk about Nicasia. Let's talk about the undersea. Okay. Because there's a really fantastic story in the novella about Nicasia and the undersea. And I know, Jess, that you love mermaids, and that is Nicasia. So how are we feeling about Nicasia?
I love mermaids. However, the more I am becoming familiar with fairy and fantasy, mermaids aren't as nice as people try to depict them as. They're very, or even in Harry Potter, they're more, I don't know, they're more siren-like than mermaid. That's just kind of what I'm learning. However, Nicasia, she's a piece of shit person, just in general. I was thinking that we know that there, from the first 3 books, we know that she has a relationship with Locke. She has a relationship with Cardan. We know when they kidnapped Jude and the Wicked King, she's so wrapped up in her emotions for Cardan. She doesn't care about that. She doesn't care that Jude is kidnapped. She just wants to know, why does he like you more than me? Wah, wah, wah. In the novella, we come to find out Cardan, Nicasia was like his first love in a way, and it was this person who he didn't have to try to be around. He was this, he always says, like, I have this wicked tongue. I'm clever. I'm bratty. I'm like, he's a trouble starter. And but she accepts him the way that she is. And they work together. Like, that works for them because they're friends first.
They're friends first. Yeah.
They're friends first. They fall for each other. It's that first love. The first person who's accepted him as him, because even up until that point, his family changed, wanted to change him. He went to live with Balkan. He needed to be reformed so he can go to all these stately political dinners and revels. So he was groomed to be a certain way. And here's this person who didn't like all the formality of the land, she just liked him. And we find out that she's bored of that. So what does she do? She fucks his best friend. And in his fucking bed with his sheets, believe me, I get worked up about this shit. Then I had to coerce myself, like, off the ledge of, like, yelling at Nicasia. Then I had to think, okay, this is fairy. Let's remember that it's not the same ideologies as humans. And you know that because you hear the discussion of the rebels and the orgies and this and that, the other thing. However, and this applies to human world too, if that's your thing, go for it. But it's not everybody's thing. And clearly in that moment, that's not Cardan's thing either. You know, he wasn't like, oh, can I join? Like, let's make this a thing. Locke, I'm not surprised. He's a shitty person to know he's all about creating the story because he's bored. He's bored with his own life, which I don't want to say I get, but his dad's dead. His mom's dead. He has nobody in his estate. So he's just kind of going, you know, creating his own thing, not caring who gets hurt in the process. Because even when he gets caught, he goes, oh, it's not that big of a deal. We're all friends. We're all friends here. No.
And Cardan was pissed. Cardan was pissed. So
He
pissed.
beat his ass to the point that then as Locke is walking out, he backhand sucker punches Cardan. And then Cardan goes after him. And like the little bitch that Locke is, he fucking ran. The only thing relatable about that entire 24 hours was I was the tree girl who was drunk dancing on the table because
but you didn't end the way that the tree girl ended, which is by being burnt alive by Valerian, which is just a throwaway line. It's like, I hope your brother's not mad. I think I
killed a girl.
I murdered one of the guests.
And
like,
how
the
about
fuck?
and maybe it just, yes, she was killed, but I feel like the morbidity was taken away by saying she was like, sap was pouring out as opposed to blood.
Well, yeah.
I shouldn't laugh, but I'm like, I really like maple syrup, so.
Something that I really related to in this whole situation was that after Locke and Cardan have their fist fight, after Nicasia is gone, after the party's gone, Cardan is just like, well, fuck, and goes on like a 3 or 4 day bender. And I love that because he was never actually completely sober the first time. And then he says like, I'm drinking, and there's like, powders are being pressed into his mouth. And then we get the story of him riding his horse through the lessons, which was just mentioned briefly in the other books. But now he's like, you know what? Fuck these kids. I'm going to show them that, you know, I'm still here and that it's fine, you know, whatever. And he gets on the horse and he's like too drunk, and the door, I love the door, right? The talking door. He's like, you really shouldn't go out like that. He's like, whatever. And he like kind of falls off his horse and he rides through the lessons. I love it.
I like the part where Cardan tells, I don't remember who he tells, the help, quote unquote, I don't know. But he goes, I'm the prince. And then you find out that Jude's like, you're a prince. Like, calm the fuck down. And I love those little throwaway lines that he's the guy. Like, their relationship is very much, you have the guy with the big ego, and then you have the girl who knocks him down a couple pegs. I love that. That's very my dynamic when, like, I don't flirt. I just shit on you.
You roast.
I roast people, and people who are the types who they know they're attractive, they don't know how to handle somebody being that confrontational about it. I could still think that they're the most attractive person in the world. I'm not gonna let myself go there. Like, oh, so you are a piece of shit. They'd be like, what? Why are you calling me? Fuck you.
So Nicasia, and we're like going back and forth about Nicasia, but Nicasia, after all of this. So she gets dumped by Locke, obviously, because Locke is doing this thing with Jude and Taryn.
I love that part where he's just casually reading, and she just...
What is he reading?
He's reading Alice in Wonderland.
He's reading Alice. He has a taste for mortal books. That is also so cute.
Well, let's talk about the connection with the book. Yeah. That the book isn't just like he got it. He got it from his sister, who got it from Jude's sister. Yeah. Who got it from... So I love the connection there because... And then when you find out from book 1 that Jude goes, oh, she doesn't even know it's their copy. She goes, oh, he has a book from our world. That's weird. Not even realizing it's her book. It's her family's book.
Like, my mom used to read this to us.
And that was the book her mom read. It was very full circle in that moment. But I like when Balekin's like, wait till her lover gets bored of her, then she'll be coming back. I mean, even though he was approaching it from a political standpoint, I really appreciated that she did come back and she was just like, oh, like, please, let's make it work. It was just like a dalliance or whatever. And he goes, he dumped your ass, didn't he? She's like, hear me out. He goes, no, but he dumped you. But let's continue. And I love that she couldn't deny it, that he did dump her.
I also really like, and this is a little bit earlier, but in the novella, Nick Cage's like, let's go to the undersea. Let's go. And Cardan's like, yeah, like I could rule as your consort in the undersea. And she puts a spell on him and then they go and he like freaks out. He can't do it. Obviously, this is Nick Cage's like natural state, so she's flourishing, whatever. But Cardan just feels the oppression of the water, and he's like, I couldn't drink because the liquid, whatever.
He couldn't even talk. It was basically just when not necessarily scuba diving, but when people do those like underwater bicycles or something with the globe on their head, that's how I imagined it, like an air bubble. Or, in Harry Potter where he had that thing over his mouth for an hour, just swimming through. And when they resurface, she's like, oh, you'll get used to it. But isn't it the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? And they're fairies, so he can't lie. He goes, it's something else. Let me tell you.
It's really something. It's really good. I also really like the descriptions of Orla and Nicasia and their clothes. I know it's like a weird detail to like, but like Orla has a big like whale jawbone like around her, and Nicasia has corsets of fish bones. And, like,
or she has the shark skin leather.
Yeah,
I loved the coral, the starfish. I mean, that's very much. Like, I love all things mermaidy, seashell-y, which is also really funny considering, I grew up in Florida, but here I am in New York, thriving more than I ever would as a mermaid. But don't ask me to be a mermaid in the Hudson. Like, that's fucking gross. It's disgusting.
Something that I just remembered is, mermaids have always kind of been a little sketchy because if you think about the animated Peter Pan, they do try to drown Wendy.
Yeah. They're very catty.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We think of Ariel, but...
Yeah, I feel like you naturally think of Ariel because that's just how prominent it is. But I love... We're going off course for a second. But I love when you see different fan theories, like Disney fan theories, where Ariel's mom, when she was younger, was one of the mermaids in Peter Pan.
Yeah. I need someone to confirm all of that. That would be really fantastic. One of my favorite scenes that isn't given enough credit, I don't think, is when Jude is ambushed by Randolin, the like master of keys.
Is that the one who goes, I would suggest you step down as queen, like when all that shit's happening?
This is that scene. So when he ambushes her, and, Jude goes out to the guard. She's like, who the fuck let him in here? And like, Fan is there and she's like, you need your own guard. And she's like, you have the job now. But Randolin's in there and he's like, this is bad for Fairy. You're a mortal queen, blase, blase. And then he's in the midst of like telling off Jude. And then the door opens and Randolin's like, I didn't send for you. And Cardan's like, you didn't now. The fuck you talking to? And then Randall's like, oh no, shit. And then Cardan's like, Jude, would you excuse us? I need to have a word with Randall.
So hot. That whole exchange.
But like, we don't know what he said to Randallin, and I am desperate to know what he said because Randallin runs out of that room.
Doesn't even bat an eye at Jude. And you know that Cardan came out of there breathing at how pissed he was. And I really want to know that exchange, but he was also so smug knowing he basically had Randallin shit himself.
Yeah. It was just really good. I just love Cardan. So let's talk about the only spicy scene that we have in this book, which is their sexy time.
I wouldn't, and maybe it's just where we are at life. With the reread, I was excited for them the first time. And even the second time, I didn't consider it spicy. I thought it was a sweet, vulnerable moment for both of them. And maybe it's an unpopular opinion. I don't know. We've never really had the conversation. Just because the scene has sex doesn't mean it has spice. And not in like this vanilla way, but like you said, this is a very sweet moment. They're both vulnerable with each other. He's emotionally laid it out on there. They've obviously haven't consummated their marriage. And she's trying to have like an even playing field to show that she's all in also.
I think it's really important because, correct me if I'm wrong, but right before Jude and Cardan had the sexy, they are at the big banquet with all of their allies and stuff. And Jude is in the armored dress, right? So it's very symbolic that they go and they have their sexy time, and Jude feels very vulnerable. And then at the end of that, she's talking about, like, how do people like us take off our armor? One piece at a time.
I thought that was a really nice, because I really liked that line, or really just the exchange with each other because of that moment. They're both vulnerable. They're both acknowledging that they have trauma in their own personal lives, as well as with each other, because they have such a strained history together. And I think it was just a really important moment that they both acknowledged, but they also acknowledged that they wanted to grow together from that it is more than what they have together. And I think I really do like their relationship. And I think it helps that we've discussed in the previous episode regarding Folk of the Air, but haven't revisited it now. Cardan isn't this 500-year-old Fae male. This is a very, I don't want to say high school relationship, but this is a very young relationship. And they're both still coming into their own, and they're doing it together as well as doing it separately, and kind of finagling how this world is going to continue to work for both of them.
There is, I think, personally, a little bit of spice in this exchange because Jude feels out of control with all of her like desire or whatever for Cardan. So she goes in the back, strips naked, comes out and gets on her knees. And she's like, when you pictured me, she's like, when you pictured me, is this how you pictured? And Cardan's like really uncomfortable. He's like,
because he did.
He can't lie about it. And he's like, I wouldn't be opposed to like a little like groveling.
Which, let's talk, it brings it back to the first book when he wanted her to like be on her knees, kiss his shoes, kiss his boot, blah, blah, blah. Like, I like them. I like them together. They're so good for each other.
All about it. And then I'm pretty sure it's here where he says, how basically like how the tables have turned. Now it's I who would beg and like grovel for a kind word from you. And then I'm pretty sure that's when he calls her his sweet nemesis. And of course the fantastic line, like, by you I am forever undone. Like, how quotable is Mr. Cardan Greenbrier? Like, holy crap.
Some of these, like the quotes that he does have out there, those are the ones where, whether you're an enemies to lover person or a slow burn person or friends to lover, whatever your preference is in regards to romance, his one-liners, it's hard to deny that you wouldn't want to hear any of that from somebody you're into.
For real. And we know that Cardan has done other things throughout this entire series, starting from The Cruel Prince and even into the novella. He's done these other things for Jude to kind of show his love for her that she didn't know about. So in the novella, he goes to fight Aslog so that she wouldn't have to. In the beginning of the series, he sends her the coronation dress. Nicasia is telling Jude, he sent you a gown. And of course, Jude had no idea. And she says, it was the most beautiful gown she's ever seen. And it complimented her so well.
Big gestures and little gestures, too.
Right. And things that Jude doesn't know about. She doesn't know that Cardan frequently would steal the human servants out of Baelken's, out of Hollow Hall and free them in the mortal world because for a lot of reasons, but mainly because ensorcelled humans was so fucking weird to him because he was in love with Jude and he couldn't ever picture her being like that.
Or somebody doing that to her.
Exactly. And also just a throw out kind of thing out there. As I was rereading all of this, the Milkwood is on fire a lot. Cardan sets it on fire. It was on fire when he was a snake. I think Locke set it on fire one time. This poor forest is always on fire.
I will say that I didn't look at the map really the first read. But as I've grown accustomed to The Road of Glass, the whole series, understanding the map now and seeing where Hollow Hall is compared to where they're neighbors. They have literally a forest, a tiny little forest that splits between them. So now knowing the back and forth of each other, they've basically been the girl next door this whole time without her knowing. Mm-hmm. And he would say, even in little throwaways in the novella of the Duarte twins, or Valerian would say which one do I like? Is it the one or the other one? And you knew right away which one Cardan was into. And I love the little things. And even, I think in regards to gestures, where Taryn turns to Jude and she goes, he's asking all this stuff to impress you. He wants to know more about you, whether it was the gummies, I think it was, they were talking.
Gummies and slushies. How sweet.
And even when in the novella, where Oak gives up his bed so they just have a place to sleep together. And, it's probably this little twin. So he's just happy that they're, she's saying you probably miss your giant palace and this huge bed and you're stuck in this twin with me. And he just wants to be so close to her that he loves that they're sharing this twin bed together. So there is no option. He gets to snuggle up with her. And he even says, he goes, the palace, that's not me. He's always wanted to get away from the palace because of all the trauma that he associates it with. And in that regard with their dynamic, it's all she wants is to be accepted by Elfhame and the folk. And he wants nothing more if he can just get rid of it and walk away, although he is still coming into his own.
There's something that I noticed when I was reading this novella, and it's when they're sleeping in the twin bed. And it's just a throwaway. It's Cardan stroking the light fur on Jude's cheek.
I remember, but I thought it was interesting that they made it a point, not just her cheek, but the hair on her cheek or something.
Right. And I of course, I don't know exactly why Holly did it that way, but I think it was an interesting way of kind of showing from Cardan's perspective that Jude is this wild and different kind of I'm going to say species, but I don't mean it in a derogatory way. She's this wild thing that came into his life, and he's different because he has a tail and he has, pointed ears and stuff, but she also has her own unique characteristics. She has light fur on her face and her ears are round, and he focuses on those things and he loves those things.
But it's just they're dissimilar because those are things that she focuses on him. Like she always talks about the ears, or he'll have the ear jewelry, just like Oriana.
Oh, shout out to Elfhame on Instagram and TikTok. She posted one of those Marge Simpson TikToks about, it'll be good for the economy. And she bought elf ears.
Oh, like actual elf ears, or the ear jewelry that you had been
the ear jewelry.
Oh, that's so
the
pretty.
Ear jewelry. They're really, really pretty. She got them on Amazon, and she posted a picture in them, and they are fantastic. And of course, that is directly related to this because Cardan wears gold tips on his ears, and Oriana wears them too, and Jude really wants them as well. So it's great. It's great. Just a little shout out.
I love that they exist, that it's not just this thing that Holly wrote into the book. Like this jewelry truly exists for those of us who aren't Fae.
For real. We haven't touched about the prophecy at all, which is such a crappy thing to have hanging over your head your whole life, knowing that this prophecy is out there and that, Cardan would destroy the throne, and only out of his blood could a great ruler rise.
Well, technically, now that we've read Queen of Nothing, prophecies are all about how they're interpreted and who's interpreting it. Because you learn in the novella, he even says when he goes to the undersea with Nicasia, he goes, well, maybe this is the prophecy. Maybe I am considered terrible to Elfhame, but I'm a hero under the water. So maybe that's the prophecy that I don't know about yet. And now you find that he was a serpent. The throne did break. Technically, the throne did break.
Matic broke it.
And by that, a great ruler, what was it again?
Only through his spilt blood could a great ruler rise. Because Matic is the one through Grimson's sword, and Grimson is just a gross asshole. But through the plunging of the sword by Matic into the ground in the Breck, it split the throne and broke the throne. Cardan is just the king that happened to be on it. It could have been anybody.
Right.
But, it kind of goes into that whole thing about the more you try to avoid a prophecy or fate is the more you're actually walking into it.
Like Final Destination?
Oh, God. Yeah. Like Final Destination. I just think it's really interesting. It could have been anybody. It just so happened to be Cardan, and it just happened to be Matic and everything. But something that I want to point out is after Cardan is no longer a snake, after Jude goes through her whole transformation and accepts herself as queen, Cardan uses the power of the land to make 2 thrones. And then he looks over at Jude and he's like, do you like it? And I wrote down what she said. And she goes, he asked me if I liked it. And it was like someone asking if you enjoy the crown of stars that they've conjured from the sky. Being like, yeah, of course I like it. Are you nuts? God.
I really appreciate his gestures.
Yeah.
Because, he's trying. It's not this alliance. It's not this marriage of convenience. He loves her.
He also takes the time to, know Heather and personally invite Heather to the dinner. And he's like, last time you were here, we were poor hosts, but it'll be better this time. He does try to make an effort to show Jude how much he cares for her, throughout the whole book, which is just really lovely. We haven't talked about the Court of Teeth at all. And let me just tell you, I am terrified of the Court of Teeth. First of all, fantastic name. Such a good fairy name, the Court of Teeth. But that fucking bridle sets my skin on edge.
The bridle that they put on
Surin. Oh my gosh. And the straps dig into your skin. And actually just Surin in in the whole book. After they extract the bridle from her, they stitched the crown into her head. And then she has a leash like through her wrist. It's really horrifying. And I also like, if we're talking about the bridle, Jude having this whole kind of internal like monologue with herself, being like, the bridle's a really good deal. I could have Cardan with me forever. I would never be alone. He would be bound to me and also a symbol of the power. And, if the land is poisoned, then we'll go down together pretty much. And then she realizes that Cardan would hate to be trapped like that. And she starts thinking about how unfair it is. And, he earned the people of Elfhame. He earned their respect. They pledged to him
they pledged their fealty to him when Maddox was trying to take the throne. And he goes, you know what? I'm not here to be a dictator. I might be king, but let's leave it up to the people, and even though that's kind of how Maddox said, oh, you're trying to be this dictator, blah, blah, blah. Let the people choose. If they don't have to choose you. And it bit him in the ass because they wanted him. Things were great. I don't want to say that they were perfect, but I think the people also saw that Cardan stopped putting up a front and he truly was trying. And I think they saw that at the end of Wicked King when he was raising the islands, and they were like, look, if the earth accepts him as true king, why wouldn't we?
Taryn and the ghost. I don't need any more about that potential relationship, but I do like that Taryn and the ghost kind of have a thing.
I don't know why. Why do I feel like I didn't pick up on that?
It's because it's like two lines. It's Taryn being familiar with the ghost when he was in the oubliette, and she knew his true name because the ghost would come to Locke's estate all the time, and they were familiar there. And then at the very end, after Jude has sentenced Maddox to, before she sentenced Maddox to never pick up a weapon and live his life in the mortal world, which I need that novella. I would love that.
Tried pizza.
Oh my God. I just want that, him trying to navigate it. But when Cardan gives out the masks, and two of them, we know it's the roach and the bomb, hold hands and kind of walk away. And then the bomb and the roach hold hands and walk away. And then the ghost turns back and is looking at Taryn, and Taryn's looking at him. And there's a connection there. And it's important to note that Jude thinks throughout the series that the ghost is relatively handsome. He's got sandy hair and his ears aren't super pointed or whatever. Meanwhile, the roach has that twisty nose and stuff. So just a little interesting throwaway line that people don't pick up on a lot, but that I especially noticed during this reread. Okay, so we're at the end of Queen of Nothing, which ends with the fantastic line. But I also really love that Cardan walks with Oak to the pizza place and they get all the pizzas, and Jude is so worried that Cardan is just going to shit on everything, and he doesn't. He takes it all in, and it's just really great. And then they make it back to Vivi's apartment, and Heather is there, and they meet Heather for, the second time, I guess. And they have an ice cream cake with gummy snakes on it, which is so cute.
And you have a really good fan art from, I know you purchased it from A Touch of Magic Design, of it was happy anniversary or welcome for Jude and Cardan, and they're just eating pizza. It's a really cute fan art. We should post it.
And the line is I don't remember exactly, but it's family and fairyland and scheming great schemes is how it ends.
Scheming
and
great
it's just
schemes. I love
yes,
that.
Scheming great schemes. Oh, it's wonderful. We love it. I love this series. So instead of going all the way through the novella, because I know we've touched on a few things, let's just throw it back and let's do top 3 moments of the novella. What do you think?
I'm trying to think because I still feel like it's really fresh, but I can't think of them. You go first because I need a refresher. Aside from, I really do enjoy the gas station. I think that's really sweet. I think of him having this regal, he's dressed as this emo kid in this regal tone of, might you have some means by which I could navigate your lands? It's just he is on a quest. It's really cute.
Okay, so you said me go first. In no particular order. This is in no order. The gas station, obviously. I also like his line was like, I'm not going to glamour leaves. I'm the king. I'm going to give you gold.
And the guy doesn't even know he has more money in his hand for the gold than if he would have had the money.
I also like that the gas station attendant was like hawking his own self-published book about like the like weird and crazy hotspots around
it's
like
Maine. Instead of weird New Jersey or it was weird Portland.
It's like, I love it. So that I love when Cardan and Jude and everybody are watching Knives Out. Also great. And Cardan's like, he understands everything and nothing. I just love that. He's like, and the nurse is really pretty and like gets all the things. It is great. And then I like when they are eating dumplings and like bubble tea.
Oh, how about when Oak looks at him when he tried to eat half the dumpling? They're like, what are you doing? That's not how, that's gross. You eat the whole thing. Don't put it back.
That is really interesting because I don't know if other people have picked up on this, but when they describe the food in Fairyland, it's always like little things and like very like paper thin slices of meat and like olives and cheese and like duck eggs and stuff. And Jude has a very throwaway line where she's like, there was enough food at this feast where even a human like me could eat their fill. So I feel like
so skinny.
Yeah, I feel like the Fae just don't eat a lot. So Cardan taking half bites of things makes total sense in that kind of worldview.
I wrote down a line, and I don't want to say it's my favorite line from the novella, but I do think that it helps understand him a little bit more because your heart breaks for Cardan when you know more of his history. And it said that hate that was because I think he was being beaten at this time. Hate that was so bright and hot that it was the first thing that truly warmed him. Hate that felt so good that he welcomed being consumed by it. Not a heart of stone, but a heart of fire. And it's just one, it's telling of like, he really is taking Aslog's stories to heart with the lessons, but two, that it was almost his moment. This whole time he thought he had a heart of stone. So the fact that he felt anything, even though it was pain and it was hurt, I thought it's just like, you feel bad for him and you understand him a little bit more as to how and why he is the way he is and the way he loves, and he's learning and he's growing. And again, we could go back to, maybe I really do like the Aslog part of like his story that he's telling her, because it felt very full circle of who he was and who he is, which is a general theme that we discuss. And what I love about YA and fantasy is that acceptance. I think it's a very special moment.
It is a really special moment. We love him.
I love him more now. I definitely just like, I think it helped being immersed in different not fandoms, but seeing the different fan art and the content that's out there. It's hard not to like him. And I don't want to say once you have that backstory. I mean, we've talked about like there is a level of toxicity with their relationship. That doesn't mean it's acceptable. But it's interesting. It's anybody who studies psychology is understanding why the person is the way that they are. And then you try to delve in it a little bit further of being in similar scenarios and how people cope with that. And I think that's just being able to have a discussion about it is important too.
I pulled up the villains passage that I know I sent it to you.
Oh, I posted it on my...
Yeah, and you posted it. I'm looking at it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
Villains were wonderful. They got to be cruel and selfish, to preen in front of mirrors and poisoned apples, and trap girls on mountains of glass. They indulged all their worst impulses, revenged themselves for the least offense, and took every last thing that they wanted. And sure, they wound up in barrels studded with nails or dancing in iron shoes heated by fire, not just dead, but disgraced and screaming. But before they got what was coming to them, they got to be the fairest in all the land. I love that. I love that so much. I think that's my favorite, passage from this book as a whole.
Easily.
Yeah. It just kind of sums up. It just kind of sums up everything. It sums up the villainy, but it's also everyone gets their comeuppance. It's just good. It's really good. Holly has a way with words that she can say a lot by saying very little. And describe a lot by describing certain things, as opposed to it's like a show not tell or a tell. You know what I mean? It's just great. I love it. I love her. Quite fabulous. I want to end this episode with 2 shout outs. The first one is to Chotronette, Chotronette. That's at Chotronette and the website.com. They make the most absolutely stunningly beautiful gowns that Jude would absolutely wear. There is, in fact, an armor gown that is kind of all over the Folk of the Air Facebook page, which we are both a part of. And it's just wonderful and absolutely fantastic. So check them out.
I like Waking Up because usually they do a good, I don't know where they're based, because whenever I wake up, they've already posted and it must be middle of the day wherever they are. But I love our exchange back and forth where we'll say Jude would wear this, Taryn would wear this. I could see Vivian. We just start dressing. We just play dress up through memes now.
It's so great. My second shout out is going to be at Candymakeupartist. That is on TikTok. This account has the most beautiful, enamel corsets.
Never heard of that.
Oh my God. They're stunning. You could absolutely see people in Elfhame wear it, the High Court. I could see Taryn in it. I could see Jude in some of them. They're gorgeous. I mean, obviously I don't know how they feel. I'm going to assume pretty awful, but I mean, it's a corset. So check them out. Give them a look. Gorgeous stuff. Those are my shout outs. Yes.
Feel free to check us out on Instagram, ACOFAE Podcast, ACOFAE. We're pretty active on there. Also, we have our TikToks, ACOFAE Jessica and ACOFAE Laura. So please feel free to check us out. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks. Bye.